Hi, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. Happy ADHD Awareness Month. I am Stephanie, and I am founder of the ADHD Advocate. And this month, we're very pleased to be going live with you every day this month and talking about all topics ADHD. So this week, we're talking about ADHD insights. Yesterday, I spoke to Dr. Vic Patel, who just joined our team recently. He is a dialectical behavioral therapist. And we had a very interesting conversation around managing ADHD and emotional regulation aspects of ADHD. It was really enlightening. If you did miss the live, we do have the recording. Everything's going to be on our YouTube channel, all the recordings, but I definitely found that this particular discussion was extremely enlightening and really, really made a lot of sense, actually, what Dr. Patel talks about in terms of the emotions that we have, why ADHDers tend to not check in with those emotions, and what problems lie as a result. So today, I'm going to be talking to you about ADHD needs. Now, there's many reasons why ADHDers do not get their needs met. The first one is basically that ADHDers often, one, don't know they've got ADHD, or they may know and don't accept they've got ADHD. And well, finally, when they accept they might have ADHD needs, the problem is it's about taking action to get the needs met. Usually communicating the need is also going to be a massive problem. So there's quite a few barriers that get in the way to meeting ADHD needs. So let's firstly look at the first one. So we at the ADHD Advocate in coaching, we are always talking about naming it to tame it. You cannot tame what you do not name, right? So we are very big advocates of understanding ADHD, of identifying particular ADHD needs, looking at everything through the ADHD lens. And it is quite incredible, actually, when someone gets diagnosed with ADHD and they learn more about it, they really understand it. And it's very interesting for them to look back at their life, what happened to them, how they kind of reacted to things, what they accepted through the ADHD lens. It's actually a lot of ADHDers go through quite a bit of a grieving period as a result. It's a completely new perspective on things, because when you know better, well, hopefully, right, we do better. But the case with ADHD is the other saying that we talk about is that we know what to do, we don't do what we know. And this is where the body double comes in. But that's kind of later down the track that we'll talk about leaning into interdependence and why it's so important. But back to the ADHD lens. So the first thing for an ADHD to do is to understand the ADHD. To understand that these things that they struggle to do, be it whether there's a time blindness that they're always late, maybe they don't give clear instructions, maybe they get really bothered by sensory sensitivities, which again, it's like an invisible trait of what is an invisible disability, these sensory sensitivities, very much more kind of known to fall under the autism kind of category. But also when you've got ADHD, you're also probably going to have sensory sensitivities. Now that could include sensitivity to noise, to taste, to light, to touch, certain textures. And the thing is, ADHD rarely travels alone. So you've often got ADHD with autism, maybe dyslexia, a bit of dyspraxia, maybe some OCD. It's a bit of a cocktail. We come in a bit of a cocktail, but definitely from what we see in coaching, when there's the ADHD and the ASC, the autism spectrum condition combined, we tend to see a lot more needs. We really do. And a lot of those needs, they do derive from sensory sources. So for instance, you see this in education, a child might be, okay, and actually, it's like that iceberg they talk about, they might be tolerating. Maybe someone said something that upset them. Maybe they've kind of checked out and missed what the person was saying at the front of the class. And maybe now, they can feel their jumper's a bit itchy, but, they're tolerating. No one can see and visibly that there's a problem. But then all of a sudden someone closes the window and it's starting to get hot, really hot. And that's when you'll probably see some kind of maybe outburst, or just yeah, no longer being able to tolerate that, boom. And it is literally a process that's quite invisible as well to the ADHDer, as well as to those onlookers, to teachers, to parents. And it is very much like this thing has come from nowhere, but actually it very much has not come from nowhere. This thing has been building. It's just that the ADHD has been tolerating, but then comes a point when the need is so great, they can tolerate no more. And it's like a cup being filled up with water, and then it just spills everywhere. And that's what we're dealing with. And that's why, one of the reasons why it is so important to be able to look through that ADHD lens to understand, identify these needs. So the second thing that gets in the way of getting needs met are accepting that you've got ADHD needs, that these are valid needs. Now, there's several reasons for this. One is that ADHDers often won't believe they have ADHD. We've coached a number of doctors in particular who just really kind of, resist this diagnosis. Also, other ADHDers that feel, well, hang on, I don't want this to be an excuse, or this is way too convenient. Despite what a lot of people think about ADHD is, they don't let themselves off the hook very easily. They're actually quite brutal on themselves, hold themselves up to very high standards. And so that diagnosis of ADHD, or if they accept that they've got these ADHD needs, that would mean then that, that they're different as well, and they don't want to be different. And so they resist, they really resist. So rejection sensitivity lies very much at the heart of not accepting your ADHD needs, because you don't want to inconvenience anyone. You don't want to stand out from anyone. You don't want to let the team down. So we should all over ourselves. And you see this everywhere, particularly in the workplace, also obviously at schools, particularly in schools where the RSD for kids, because of the navigating social relationships, they definitely don't want to be coming across as precious. You get teased pretty mercilessly, at school for being different, for maybe being difficult. So the masking kind of continues again until such time as they can only tolerate so much, and just one small thing. And it's always just like one small thing. And then there's an outburst. And then unfortunately, that poor ADHD that was trying so hard to mask, to not annoy anyone or look precious, has now really looks kind of irrational, over the top. So unfortunately, it doesn't help us. Masking, trying to tolerate these things, we're just deferring the pain. We're deferring the inevitable RSD that will come when you don't understand, accept, and communicate to get those needs met. See it all the time in coaching, and I'm sure you guys have experienced it. Now, the third thing is that ADHDers confuse needs with wants. So I've done a lot of coaching with people, particularly the young ones, in relation to food sensitivities, in that certain food sensitivities are really strong. And actually, when someone makes them something, when they're eating it, they'll literally describe it as, perhaps one kid explained that it literally felt like, smelled like, tasted like they were eating poo. And of course, the child's not able to communicate that to the mother. The child's just having an absolute fit. The mother's labored over the stove, this beautiful meal, puts it down, and the child's immediate reaction is to just yell and get angry, because the fear, that anxiety, all behavior is a form of communication. Really important to note that, parents of children with ADHD and autism, there's a reason behind this communication, this aggression, and it's fear. And often they can't find the words. They don't know really themselves. They can't identify the need. They can't identify the issue in order to communicate it. All they know is that, oh my God, this is going to be really, really uncomfortable, or that, as well as, and I'm going to react really badly, and then I'm going to upset my mom, and then she's going to be angry at me, and then she's going to reject me. And then there's that fear of RSD. There's a lot to unpack. And so it's just being able to, again, look through that lens, be able to create space and try and draw the ADHD out in terms of helping them to get clear about what it is that they're worried about. We do a lot of this in coaching. It's fantastic for helping ADHDers identify, the root of the problem, of the anxiety, and then helping them communicate so that, people understand, understand the need and can also understand the consequences of when that need isn't met. Because chances are, when everyone understands, no one wants anyone to be suffering like that. And, perhaps the mother could cook a more plain meal and then avoid this massive meltdown that might happen, that will then kind of set off huge argument, and things will tend to spiral in an ADHD household. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of taking the time to understand your ADHD needs, or your child's ADHD needs, your students, your employees' ADHD needs, just so that you can get the best out of them. Because when when a need is met, when needs are met, you're going to have happier students, happier children, happier employees, right? It's going to benefit everyone. So the fourth barrier to ADHD is getting their needs met is that we don't take action to address these needs. And again, several reasons for that. There's always several reasons for all of these things. The first reason is we tend to be have unmitigated optimism. Now, a client actually, she came up with that phrase fairly recently, a new one, and I thought it was amazing. And it just so encapsulates that ADHD, the optimistic ADHD mindset of I can do everything. It's going to be fine. Everything's fine. I can handle everything. And this type of ADHD with unmitigated optimism, and I will admit that's probably me, I'm included in that camp, often get caught out because we really can't do everything. And no, we're not always fine. And the thing is, it's a coping strategy, obviously, that a lot of ADHDs employ in order to get through things. And I spoke about this with Dr. Patel actually yesterday, because it went, directly relevant to being able to name your emotions, right? To be able to regulate your emotions. And, he made an important point around how the emotions are signals. They are signals. And if we're always fine, if we deny that our needs are being unmet and we just keep tolerating, then it's kind of like a frog in a boiling pot situation. The water will keep boiling, will keep heating up. And, we've got this unmitigated optimism. We've got this narrative running, right? Everything's fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Water keeps on heating up, but we're fine. And then, hopefully we jump out just before it boils. The problem is, what are you jumping out onto? Is there a soft landing, or are you jumping off a cliff, right? We don't want to wait that long. We really don't. I can't tell you. Well, some of you may know the consequences that come with that approach of being fine. We think we're being resilient, right? One of the things a lot of people talk about, a big strength of ADHD is our resilience, but it's not a strength in these kind of situations, because we're not admitting that maybe we're not fine, checking with our emotions, and then obviously listening to them and then taking action accordingly, and getting our needs met. It can end very badly for us. And so, yes, very, very important to check in with yourself. And, obviously, there are specialists that can help you do that. It may be that CBT can help you unpack things like that as well. DBT, obviously, Dr. Vic Patel. Do the work, create the space, and sit with the discomfort. So important. So that's one of the reasons why we don't take action. The second one is some ADHDs, particularly if they've got autism as well, they're just so overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed, they're paralyzed by having, being in a state of unmet needs. They are actually kind of overwhelmed and unable to take action. And this is not good, obviously, and they need, they need support, need help, body double strategy to be able to get them to a place, or DBT, for instance, in order to get them to a place where they can regulate and get clear and access the cognitive and take action. Sometimes it may be even in that state, they need an advocate. And again, that's why it's so important as well that ADHDers ask for help, right? So that, remember, we talked about how the whole education goal being independence versus interdependence. And we are very much advocates of Dr. Hallowell's view that the life goal for ADHD should be interdependence. And very much when it comes to this, meeting our needs, very, very much let's lean into interdependence, right? And the sooner that we can do that, the sooner that we can accept that we do have these needs, right? And be, you know, there is vulnerability involved there, but again, it's keeping an eye on what's at stake, the consequences. You know, you're not just going to be doing yourself a favor, you're going to be doing everyone around you that you will impact as well a favor. And the reason why I frame it that way is that ADHDers tend to be able to do things for others that they can't do for themselves, right? So if we have to reframe, that's what we're going to do. If it means that you're going to be safe and that your needs, that you're going to meet your needs. And that's what we do in coaching as well. And then we hope that by flexing that muscle, right, that kind of self-compassion and that comes and grows. But if we wait for the self-compassion to hit before, you know, the needs get met, it's going to be a long wait, and the needs need to be met. So you do what you need to do, which we do in coaching, the reframing. You make it about, you know, how it's going to impact on others, because we are driven to put everyone else's needs before our own, unfortunately. Very much because of rejection sensitivity. And also you'll find a lot of signature strengths of ADHDs include like love and kindness. You know, we're people, which again is why body double strategy is such a key one for us. A few other things that get in the way of addressing our needs, asking for help. Obviously there's a rejection sensitivity, because if you ask for help instantly, what are you saying to yourself and to the other person in your mind is, I can't do this myself, which means I am not enough. I am not enough. I'm not good enough because I can't do this myself. So by asking, it's like you're broadcasting to the world, and that makes an ADHD feel very unsafe. And safety is something that Richard's going to be talking about on Friday. Very, very important message. Definitely pop along to that live at 1 p.m. on Friday. But yeah, this is the problem though, is that fear of not being safe, you know, by not asking, again, we're setting ourselves up to literally achieve the very thing that we're trying to avoid, right? It's a recipe for lack of safety, not getting the help that we need. So yeah, you'll see this theme run through this entire month, and I won't be able to emphasize it enough. The other three things that get in the way of communicating our needs, getting them met. Some ADHDs are painfully aware of their impact on others. I definitely have seen the ADHD kind of autism combination type ADHDers. The ones that can look around the corner, the canaries in the mine, with kindness as a signature strength, they are able to literally anticipate what actions that they take will impact on others. And if, you know, decision making for an ADHD is already difficult for many reasons, another topic, but you add that layer, that lens of impact on others, because they really do care, really care. Sometimes it looks as if they don't, but actually it's the opposite. They care more than most people. And that's probably why they're so anxious and, you know, take it very seriously, take a lot of personal responsibility for actions and hold everyone else up to account and to a high standard, because they do it to themselves. So they kind of expect the same standard and get really anxious if that's not going to be met by others, because they know what's going to happen. It is really complex. As you, from I hope you can kind of see the picture here, what we're dealing with, what ADHDs are dealing with, particularly that combined type of ADHD. So being painfully aware of impact of others and not wanting to inconvenience anyone, make a fuss, annoy anyone. And so ADHDs, again, they're not going to ask for their needs to be met if it's going to be, you know, a fuss or a problem for someone else. The last two things, ADHDs are very time poor. They feel there's no time to like deal with this. I'm just going to put up with it, right? Because I can, or I think I can, or I'm not going to look around the corners and into the future as to the impact of what putting up with this will mean, because we don't feel it. We're very now versus not now, a lot of us ADHDers. So, you know, we'd rather just tolerate it, pretend it doesn't exist. We're very good at, you know, denial and disassociation, unfortunately, some of us. And so we deny, and there's no problem, it's fine, right? That unmitigated optimism again. Finally, boundaries. We are not good at setting boundaries. In order to be able to take action to address your needs, to get your needs met, quite often you have to have an agenda. You need to set and maintain that agenda. Basically, that sometimes that agenda, my time timer, sometimes that agenda will run contrary to others. So you're basically setting your agenda you know, contraries to others, and that again is very uncomfortable for an ADHD because of their rejection sensitivity. So but the only way they're going to be able to get their needs met in certain situations is to set a boundary. And again, not something ADHDers are very good at. And just very quick personal story of mine, when I trained with the ADD Coaching Academy, I remember the week where we were doing boundaries. It was quite a few years ago, and I remember thinking, boundaries, oh, this is boring. Yeah, I might just skip that week, or I'll just listen to the recording or something. Yeah, I know this one. Yeah. You know, arrogant lawyer that I was. And then, you know, I attended the webinar on boundaries, and I can't tell you, I still remember that day, that time when it just absolutely revelation dawned on me. Oh my God, this is my entire problem. Like, this is the problem, that lack of boundaries, right? And yeah, learning about boundaries was revelationary for me. Not saying I now set boundaries all the time. Healthy boundaries is always a challenge, again, because of my ADHD, the RSD in particular. A lot of us ADHDers struggle to set a boundary in a way that may not offend, you know, because usually we wait until our emotions force us to set the boundary. And again, using anger, like Vic was saying yesterday, anger is great because it can make you do things, protect yourself. But when we're doing that all the time, right, it's not going to promote healthy relationships. So yeah, it's really important to be able to set those boundaries a little bit earlier, and you will be able to do that if you know what your needs are, right? So if you've identified your needs early, you know what they are, then you're going to know, you know, you're going to feel when those needs aren't going to be met, or you're going to anticipate that they won't, and you'll be able to proactively position, right? You'll be able to set expectations clearly and early, adjust expectations, right? And actually by doing that, sure, you might cop a little bit of RSD that, you know, maybe someone's a little bit inconvenienced or they're not getting their way. But I can tell you that RSD that you're trying to avoid, right? Much better to face a little bit of that RSD up front than the RSD that comes inevitably later on when you've ended up either resentful because your boundaries have been breached, and yet again, you're kind of doing everything for everyone, right? And then getting into a massive fight with everyone, or everyone thinks that you've just lost it and they're annoyed at you. I mean, that RSD, or you're feeling so much guilt and shame, right? That you've been depressed and that you've withdrawn from friends and family, and then that RSD and those consequences are so much worse. So please, if you can, definitely, if you do know any ADHDs that could benefit from this particular session, this live, do share. It is so important to not only understand the ADHD need, right? Look through that lens, and coaching can really help you identify the specific ones, accept the needs, right? Okay, these are not wants, they're needs, they're valid, right? And you deserve to have them met. And then, you know, ask for help, lean into interdependence, ask for help, and set those boundaries gently but firmly, right? Because it will be in everyone's interest. So thank you for listening. And tomorrow, I think we've got one of our coaches, Alex. He will be speaking about, let me see, it will be what the blue zones can teach us with ADHD. So do join us then. But otherwise, have a wonderful afternoon, and yeah, go get those needs met.